Chapter 688. As a single person, Lin Chintao hadn't expected to witness such a scene during a handshake. He coughed heavily. Hey, pervert Qin, at least show me some respect. Qin Mo arched a brow, glancing over and reaching his right hand out. Lin Chintao was about to start chatting when Qin Mo interrupted him calmly. Qin Mo interrupted him faintly. I watched the 5v5 livestream just now. Your method of killing isn't bad. Lin Chintao froze. Was pervert Qin praising him? Was it going to rain red? Qin Mo continued. 2 against 1. Where's your integrity as the top assassin in the country? Lin Chintao. Wait a minute. Who said that heroes couldn't be 2 against 1? Everyone was 2 against 1. Besides, it didn't matter how many people there were in a team battle. One shouldn't be afraid and just fight. Why was it that when it came to him, 2 against 1, it was shameless? On the screen, Lin Chintao's expression was deep. Qin Mo didn't give him a chance to express his thoughts, releasing his hand, his tone casual but bloodthirsty. I will return the favor in the future. Lin Chintao. No, almighty, be reasonable. Didn't I just kill your little spade once? But now, where's your integrity? Where's your bearing? What an exciting scene. The shoutcaster was needed to smooth things over even though the handshake wasn't that exciting. Yeah, it seems like this failure has ignited Qin Mo's competitive spirit. This might not be a bad thing for Supreme Alliance. But it's a pity that Supreme Alliance didn't enter the semi-finals. Everything has come to an end. Come to an end? Ha ha ha, old song. Have you forgotten? According to the rules, there will always be a revival match. Of course, only one team has the right to participate in the revival match, and that is the team with the most MVPs. Look at Spadesy's results. Even if he lost, his total score is still higher than the winning team. Supreme Alliance still has hope of entering the National League. As long as they can win 3 matches, they will be revived. Of course, it won't be easy. According to the previous years, they have to defeat all the top 10 teams in the country, so it will be difficult to win completely. No matter what, there is still hope. This was the first time Bo Jio heard of such a competition. She arched a brow and asked Qin Mo, revival match? Yes. Qin Mo glanced sideways, his breath caressing her ear. So it doesn't matter even if we lose, we can still win. Bo Jio placed a hand on her abdomen, her lips pale. Finally, there was a smile in her eyes. Lin Chintao. The two of them were whispering. Was no one going to stop them? Knowing that they still had a chance to participate in the competition, everyone in Supreme Alliance couldn't hide their excitement. Even some fans felt the same way. He was so excited that he wanted to rush out and run a few rounds. In fact, the real fans just wanted to see these people continue to play, even if it was just one more match. There was always someone or a group of people who carried all the memories of your youth. To them, Supreme Alliance was a vessel. Many years later, they might forget the feeling of liking someone so much. However, he couldn't forget those people in battle uniforms. Their eyes were red, but they still stood tall and straight. They were Supreme Alliance. Chapter 689. She had been able to hold on during the competition. But now it had ended. The pain had been excruciating. Once they were out, she asked for a cigarette from Feng Yi. But the moment she took a puff, it was snatched away. It was the Almighty. His deep gaze swept past the youngster's hand, his gaze cold. Carry you or carry you, choose one. Bo Jio leaned back, chuckling lightly. Brother Mo, I'm not that weak. Qin Mo didn't want to waste any more time on this topic, bending over and carrying her up. At this moment, some of the fans had yet to leave. A wave of shrieks erupted. Bo Jio paused. The only thing she could think of was carrying him. At least she wouldn't have to press against the Almighty's back. Good my ass. Feng Yi wanted to rub his head again. He could predict that the number of calls he would receive would increase tenfold. How was he going to explain? He could just say that little Spade wasn't feeling well. Yes, that was it. Young master. Even Deputy Zhang, who had followed Qin Mo back from America, froze when he saw his young master carrying a youngster out. Lin Chintao, who had left at the same time. After enduring for a long time, he finally couldn't take it anymore. Lin Chintao exclaimed in the Alliance's WeChat group. What's wrong, Wuli Taotao? What happened to you? Sampang asked. Didn't you win the competition? Lin Chintao replied. I might as well not win, that pervert. Chinemo is back? My nemesis is back. Why did you only tell me now? Lin Chintao replied. Didn't you watch the live stream? I didn't. The world's most handsome fatty asked. When did I tell you I watched the live stream? Lin Chintao replied. Then you said I won. I was just comforting you. F***ck, it can't be you really won? What about Supreme Alliance? I still have to fight with my nemesis. It wasn't just the world's most handsome fatty that exploded. The others who had just finished their competition were also confused. Lin Chintao replied. This group is done. This is how you guys respond when I say I won. It's mainly because Little Spade wouldn't let you win. Lin Chintao looked at that sentence and decided to tell the truth. He's not feeling well. Not feeling well? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Lin Chintao tried to recall. There was a red mark on his wrist, but he seemed to be in pain because of his stomach. In reality, it wasn't because of a stomachache. It was because of her period. But the Almighty still knew that once he got on the car, he gave Adjutant Zhang 3 words. Go to the hospital. How could he go to the hospital with this kind of illness? Bojo paused. Brother Mo, it's an old problem. I'll be fine after resting at home and drinking some warm water. What kind of stomach illness can be cured by drinking some warm water? Chin Mo turned his head and looked at the youngster sitting on his left. Bojo pressed against her stomach, her lips pressed into a straight line. I just don't want to go to the hospital. I'm not in a good mood after losing the competition, and I know my body well. I just want to sleep now. That was indeed a good reason. At the very least, it was true for youths who were in their rebellious phase. Chapter 690. He probably hadn't expected his young master to be so intimate with someone. Deputy Zhang, who was driving, glanced at the rear mirror subconsciously. The Almighty's scent was still fragrant. It was like the cool and refreshing Kunlun snow mountain with the scent of pine and cypress trees in summer. It was easy to lower one's guard. But she didn't really fall asleep. She couldn't fall asleep with the Almighty's finger in that position. It was a special period and she had to be more vigilant. But the pressure on her lower abdomen was comforting. It eased the pain to a large extent. From this angle, when Chin Mo glanced over, he could see the faint shadow of the youngster's lowered lashes. This position isn't your stomach. What exactly is wrong with you? It was a simple question. But it hit her center of gravity. Bojo replied calmly. My intestines hurt, it happens whenever I catch a cold. Is that so? Chin Mo asked slowly. Bojo wasn't sure if the Almighty was suspicious, and was about to move. The Almighty pressed her right hand down. Why are you moving, aren't you sleeping? Bojo's lower abdomen was still sinking, but to avoid suspicion, she said, I'll change my position. Chin Mo glanced at the youngster before replying faintly, the car is big enough, that's fine too. Bojo realized that the Almighty had just finished his sentence. He reached out and her entire back slid towards his shoulder. Then her head rested on his thighs. Just as the Almighty had said, the car was big enough. Hence, it wasn't uncomfortable for her to lie on her side. Even though she couldn't straighten her legs, they could be placed in front of her. But this position made her feel as though the Almighty was treating her like a princess. This time, Princess was in the passenger seat. When he saw his master's actions, he stretched his neck and meowed. Chin Mo's handsome face turned over, his brows furrowing. The moment Princess turned, he fell silent. This cat really knew how to look at people. He had never been so obedient when he was with her. The car was warm. Moreover, it was such a comfortable position. Once she relaxed, the fatigue slowly spread throughout her body. The Almighty didn't mind her. She didn't have to be unreasonable. It wasn't every day that she had the chance to sleep on the Almighty's thighs. The main thing was that if he closed his eyes, at least he wouldn't have to answer the Almighty's questions. Moreover, there were very few times like this. Only she moved. The Almighty would lower his eyes. His features were extremely handsome, and his entire body gave off a sense of abstinence. Bojo watched the face that was inches away from her. She had the urge to take the Almighty home and raise him. The pain in his lower abdomen was slowly alleviating. The speed of the car was also very moderate, neither too fast nor too slow. It had a hypnotic effect. In her half-asleep state, she could still smell the man's unique minty tobacco scent. Instinctively, she shifted her face towards a warmer spot. Chinemo lowered his head and looked at the youngster's pale and colorless side profile. His gaze moved to the circle of red marks, and even his breath became colder. Deputy Zhang still didn't understand why the young master seemed to have become a different person the moment the young man fell asleep. On the other side, Chinemo had already called the Qin Group's legal department. Lawyer Song, the lawyer who was still at the police station because of Bojio, paused when he saw the caller ID. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Boss Qin. Chapter 691. Chinmo's fingers brushed past the red mark, his eyes filled with a violent rage. Where did you go with Fengyi today? At this point, Lawyer Song wasn't going to hide the truth. Besides, he knew how smart his boss was. The police station. The moment the three words left his mouth, Chinemo didn't seem surprised. Chinemo didn't seem surprised at all. Instead, he asked the second question. Who kidnapped my brother? Lawyer Song paused. It was Miss Wu. According to her, young Master Jiu is related to a crime squad case. The higher-ups ordered her to arrest the suspect, which is why she conducted an interrogation. Interrogation? Chinmo's voice was icy. Since when did the crime squad conduct an interrogation in a normal police station? This isn't normal. Why would Huang Zhong allow such an arrest? Lawyer Song retreated a little, shaking his head. Director Huang doesn't know. Good, very good. When Chinemo said those three words, his eyes were cold. Go and find out who gave Wu Zhen the convenience to arrest people as she pleased. Lawyer Song hesitated. What about the Wu family? Find them all. Chinemo lifted his lids. He looked indifferent, but anyone who met his gaze could feel the coldness from the bottom of their hearts. Lawyer Song knew Boss Qin was going to be ruthless. But was the young master of the Bo family that important? So important that even Boss Qin had to take action against the Wu family? It was obvious Chinemo wasn't just going to take action against the Wu family, he was going to do it personally. Go to the Wu family. Chinemo hung up the phone. His finger slid across the youngster's wrist as he casually said three words. But those who were familiar with him knew. The more nonchalant Chinemo was, the more dangerous he was. Deputy Zhang couldn't help asking. Are we going just like that? Should we bring old master in along? Do you think it's appropriate to bring my grandfather along? Chinemo countered. Deputy Zhang immediately fell silent. Even though she wasn't in a deep sleep, Bojio couldn't hear clearly what they were saying. She just knew someone was talking. She buried her face once more. The burying attracted all of Chinmo's attention, even though he had a thought that shouldn't be happening at this moment. But when he looked at the face nestled between his legs, he really wanted to. He really wanted to do something to the young man in the car. And he really did that. The car entered the tunnel. All the light is covered. In the light, Chinemo lowered his head, his thin lips kissing the youngster's wrist with the red mark. It was impossible not to be seen. Deputy Zhang's eyes widened in shock. Even with his strong mental fortitude, he had never thought that one day he would see his young master kissing a man. Although it was only his wrist. But the doting look in his eyes was real. And it was frightening. The hand holding the keyboard couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. However, the young master didn't seem to mind at all. The calmness in his eyes made Deputy Zhang understand one thing clearly. In the future, when he took over the driver's job, he would probably see this kind of scene often. But, who could tell him, why did the young master suddenly fall in love with a boy? Satisfied with the closeness of the person in his arms, Chinemo smiled, his fingers caressing the youngster's hair until they walked out of the tunnel. Chapter 692. The Wu family's butler hadn't expected Chinemo to come at this time. His face lit up, and the moment the car entered he called out in a low voice, "Hurry and inform young miss that young Master Qin is here." Yes. The servants trotted away, making the villa seem to be full of life. However, after the car stopped, Chin Mo didn't go out immediately. Instead, he used a backup cushion to replace his left leg, allowing the youngster to sink into it. His fingers caressed the delicate side of her face before he pushed the car door open. Chin Mo, who hadn't changed out of his uniform, looked like an interstellar commander straight out of a comic. Those who hadn't seen him before stopped in their tracks and turned to look at him. Courtesy before force had always been the Chin family's style. Hence, there wasn't a hint of anger on Chin Mo's face. That wasn't all. The corner of his mouth still had a faint smile on it. The more old Master Wu looked at him, the more he liked him. He held onto his dragon-headed walking stick, the smile spreading across his face. Little Mo, why are you here today? I heard from your grandfather that you went overseas to recuperate. Why are you back so soon? I wasn't supposed to be back today, but fortunately, I'm back today. Chin Mo's voice was calm. If not, I wouldn't even know if my people were caught. Old Master Wu stilled. Caught? Who would dare to catch someone from the Chin family? Old Master Wu didn't understand the reason behind it. Wu Zhen, who had just come downstairs, was clear. She hadn't changed out of her uniform. Her fingers tightened when she heard Chin Mo's words. Chin Mo glanced up. Coincidentally, the person in question is here. Old Master Wu was a leader in the business world and could tell that something was wrong. He turned his head and said, Little Mo, did Zhen do something to upset you? That's why you made this trip. You should know that Zhen has been a strong-willed person since she was young. Now that she's in such a profession, she's a little stubborn. But it can't be helped. That's her profession. She's working so hard to catch up to you. Grandpa, Brother Mo, I don't know who told you, but I know very well that arresting Supreme Alliance members at this time will incur your disgust. But a case is a case, and we can't let any suspect go. This is what you said yourself in the past. I'm just doing my job. The maiden sacrifice case involves too many people, and finding the mastermind behind the scenes is urgent. I've always been focused on the case and not the person. Fujio is a suspect, and I'm just eliminating or confirming this suspicion. Old Master Wu frowned when he heard this. It turned out that the useless young master of the Fu family was the one instigating this. Bradamo, look at what Juno said. There must be some misunderstanding. It's not worth it for an outsider. Chapter 693. Brother Mo. Wu Zhen was on the verge of breaking down when she heard the word court. She had never expected him to do this to her. It was all because of Fujio. Wu Zhen wanted to chase him back. But it was useless. The servant stood there, watching the scene in a daze. No one knew what had happened. She just wanted Wu Zhen not to run so fast. Wu Zhen pointed at the servant and told her to scram. When he went out again, he only had time to see the arc of the Hummer. She couldn't take it. She didn't care about the age of the person beside her and kicked. You blind thing. Don't you know how to stop him? The auntie, who was usually in charge of cooking, couldn't take Wu Zhen's kick. She clutched her stomach in pain. Wu Zhen's unwillingness and resentment stemmed from within. Old Master Wu's heart ached for his granddaughter. All right, if you can't stop him, you can explain in the future. But Brother Mo doesn't listen to me at all. Wu Zhen wiped her tears. Grandpa, I can't go to court. You have to help me. Old Master Wu patted Wu Zhen's shoulder. Don't worry, Grandpa won't let you suffer. That brat Mo was obviously instigated. But you too, why did you have to mess with Supreme Alliance at this time? Of course, Wu Zhen wouldn't tell Old Master Wu that it was all because of her jealousy. This was because she could no longer stand the fact that all the information that person sent out was about the young man. Even his expression wasn't his usual self. Why? What right did that scheming gay have to get all of this? Why couldn't she? She never watched esports competitions, but she specially watched today's match. When that gay lost, she felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. Everything was in line with her expectations. The fans questioned the gay's qualifications to be the vice captain. But there was one thing. Wu Zhen thought she had lost the competition. That gay's position in Brother Mo's heart would be lowered. But she never expected Big Brother Mo to blame it on her. Spadesy was good at pretending to be wronged. Wu Zhen clenched her fists. If a person was so important to Brother Mo, all the more reason for her to think of ways to get rid of this person. Grandpa, we have to talk to Grandpa about this. Wu Zhen lifted her head. The young Master Fu who is contacting Brother Mo isn't a good person. Old Master Wu was naturally on his granddaughter's side. Moreover, the Yin family needed to mediate the matter in court. Don't worry, Grandpa will go find your grandpa in a while. I won't let you suffer. Perhaps people were like this, never considering their own mistakes. Those people always like to hurt in the name of love. Moreover, he would not feel that he was wrong. Unless they get what they want, the whole world is letting them down. It was obvious that Wu Zhen was such a person. She wouldn't think about how she had framed Bo Jiu. She would only use her own thoughts to guess others. However, there was one thing that she did not know. Bo Jiu didn't care about her. Lying in the car, her abdomen was still hurting, so she didn't sleep well. She probably knew that the Almighty had gotten out of the car once and came back, but it wasn't real. However, when she opened her eyes, the car was slowly driving into the best hospital in Jiang City. Chapter 694. This doesn't seem to be my home. Bo Jiu turned, her brows arched. Qin Mo's hand was still on the youngster's furry head, his cold aura unchanged. I'll send you home after the examination. There really isn't anything to examine. Bo Jiu decided to be honest. Fine, I really don't have a stomach problem. I was caught all of a sudden, and wasn't wearing enough clothes. Coupled with the fact that I was being interrogated, I'm a little nervous. Qin Mo glanced over, his voice slow. The person interrogating you is better than me? How is that possible? Bo Jiu smiled faintly, her complexion starting to recover. Qin Mo glanced at the youngster. You weren't nervous when I was interrogating you. Why are you nervous when someone else is interrogating you? Do you believe that? Bo Jiu trap. The Almighty was tricking her again. Be obedient. Qin Mo pinched the youngster's neck as though he was pinching a cat. Then he pushed the car door open. Princess didn't want to be involved in human discussions, especially when his master was disciplining someone. Bo Jiu glanced at the nonchalant cat face. She sat in the car without moving. I'm fine. Are you forcing me to carry you down? Qin Mo arched a brow, looking suave. Bo Jiu repeated, I'm really fine. Tell me, what illness could have healed so quickly? Qin Mo glanced at the youngster. Bo Jiu smiled devilishly. Lovesickness. Ever since Brother Mo went to America, I've been having it every day. That's why I recovered the moment I saw you. Cough. Deputy Zhang's face flushed bright red. So it wasn't just his young master that had a problem. The youngster he was taking care of seemed even more. Qin Mo tilted his head, glancing towards the source of the voice, his voice calm. Deputy Zhang. I'm here. Qin Mo closed the car door, his gaze deep. Get out first. Yes. Deputy Zhang reacted quickly, alighting the moment he finished speaking. Only the two of them were left in the car. Only then did Qin Mo pull the youngster over. He lifted the youngster's chin with his fingers and smirked. Lovesickness? Bo Jiu knew she had gone too far. Their breaths were too close, so close to each other that she could hear their heartbeats clearly. It wasn't easy to escape from this situation. Hence she shifted the topic to the Almighty. Before Brother Mo left, you said you had something to tell me. You were so secretive and made me lose my appetite. Every day, I would wake up wondering what exactly you wanted to tell me. Also, Brother Mo, can you stay away from me? Being too handsome will affect my thinking. Qin Mo watched as the youngster spouted nonsense with a serious face. His fingers slid across her fair cheeks. And there was a soul-stirring depth in his eyes that one didn't dare to look at directly. I really want to know what I'm going to tell you. And he did want to. After all, it was rare to see the Almighty hesitating about something. But Bo Jiu hadn't expected that person's aura to be so close to her. The clear fragrance of the herbal tobacco hit the back of her ears. Even the sound of the heartbeat was very close. Every beat was agitating her, making her feel an indescribable sense of danger. Just as Bo Jiu was about to move. Look at me. Qin Mo lowered his lids, his fingers caressing her lips. Chapter 695. Chin Mo took a deep look at the youngster. He didn't see any impact on that handsome face. His fingers tightened before relaxing. Sure, but there's one thing. What? Bojio was still thinking about her boyfriend. Chin Mo's lips were right beside her ears. If I find out you're avoiding me, things won't be as easy to talk about. Bojio. Almighty, there isn't much to talk about right now. Mainly. Brother Mo, let me digest the sudden confession. Chin Mo replied faintly. It wasn't sudden. Immersing. Bojio wiped her lips again. Chin Mo reached out to stop her, his tone nonchalant. I've been trying to turn you gay. Turned her gay? Bojio was suddenly reminded of a movie she had watched at the Almighty's house. There had indeed been calcium tablets. Had the Almighty been trying to turn her gay? From the looks of it, it didn't seem to be working. When Chin Mo said this, he frowned. He was obviously serious. Bojio didn't know how to comment on this. The atmosphere in the car seemed to have frozen. Time seemed to have passed. Chin Mo dialed Deputy Zhang's number. When Deputy Zhang entered, he sensed something different about the youngster. With a glance, he could see the bite marks on his lower lip. He had been bitten. Deputy Zhang's fingers froze. He must have been thinking too much. That wasn't possible. But the thought was quickly overwhelmed by his young master's next words. What's wrong with your mouth? It's only a kiss. Deputy Zhang. Bojio didn't reply. Chin Mo lifted her chin, his fingertips caressing it. Where's the ointment I gave you? Home. Bojio was obedient. Actually, she wasn't obedient. She was a mess. Boyfriend. Chin Mo arched a brow. Apply it when we get back. Oh. Boyfriend. When Adjutant Zhang heard the conversation in the back seat, he had the urge to jump out of the car. They finally reached the Fu family's mansion. The quiet youngster. Just as they were about to alight, he pressed his young master against the car window. Deputy Zhang was confused. Chin Mo chuckled. He looked at the person who would never just defend. His gaze deepened. What do you want to say? There is indeed one thing. Bojio lifted her lips, her eyes dark. Brother Mo, I won't be down there, so it's better for you to consider carefully. She couldn't be the Almighty's boyfriend since they were of different genders. Oh. Chin Mo replied, inching closer to the youngster. His left hand held onto her waist, and with a forceful push, he pressed against her inner thighs. Strands of hair fell down, his gaze dark and filled with aggression. I've thought about it carefully. If you don't behave, I can tie you up. What do you think? Because of the Almighty's action, Bojio froze. She realized that in certain aspects, she wasn't his match. The blazing temperature could be felt even through the uniform. This was completely different from the man's indifferent and ascetic aura. Even the Almighty looked at her, as if he was looking at a sacrificial offering. Chapter 696. Bojio shivered, widening the distance between them. That was when she realized what she had thought would be an aggressive move. But when her reflection was reflected in the rearview mirror, it felt completely different. Especially when the Almighty's hand was placed on her waist. It was as though she was throwing herself into his arms. Chin Mo followed her gaze and caught the scene in the rearview mirror. He smiled. If it's this position, you can be on top in the future since your waist is so soft. Bojio wasn't used to this topic. She inhaled deeply, her gaze clear. Brother Mo, I'm really straight and will always be so. There's nothing permanent in this world. Chin Mo's gaze deepened. You don't have to give me an answer now. Bojio looked at him. But I'm not suitable to be your boyfriend. I said you don't have to give me an answer now. Chin Mo turned, opening the door for the youngster. His handsome face was a little blurry. We'll talk after the revival match. Bojio thought about it. That was the only way. She alighted the car and entered the villa. The black Hummer slowly disappeared from her sight. It was still a mess. The Almighty had tried to turn her gay. Turn her gay. She was a girl. How? Bojio threw herself onto the bed. She was tired and her stomach felt stuffy. But she couldn't sleep. Indeed, she couldn't sleep. Probably because she wasn't used to it. After taking care of Princess for a few days, she suddenly felt empty. But Bojio knew that wasn't the main reason. The main reason was the breath that lingered in her mouth, and the lingering heat on her long legs. That was the main reason. Her heartbeat hadn't recovered. It seemed as though she could only close her eyes. The image of that handsome and abstinent face, as well as his aura when he approached her, seemed to be able to seep into her every cell. Bojio sat up, her silver hair falling down, revealing her perfect side profile. The Almighty was gay. But how was she going to tell the Almighty? She wasn't even a boy. In the past, Bojio hadn't thought about it. But now that she thought about it, the Almighty had always been repulsed by girls. He was indeed gay. Besides, the Almighty had a cat. Didn't someone say that before? At least 8 out of 10 men with cats are gay. This situation was really... Bojio reached out to caress her hair. What if she told the Almighty her secret? If she was a girl, the Almighty would probably kill her. Perhaps he could try cross-dressing in front of the Almighty. He had to influence them subtly first. It would be better to drag it out until after the competition. The Almighty liked her in men's clothing. But she knew very well that she was not a boy. The twilight outside the window dyed the earth red bit by bit. Vaguely, the temperature dropped. Deputy Zhang, who was in the car, didn't dare to turn around to look at his young master's expression. But listening to those words just now, young master's confession seemed to have failed. Adjutant Zhang knew very well that ever since he was young, he had always been able to get whatever he wanted easily. This time, Deputy Zhang glanced at the rearview mirror. Only then did she realize that Qin Mo's posture hadn't changed since the beginning. His black fringe fell down, covering his eyes. No one could see his expression. Desolate. Chapter 697. Don't go home, go to Grandpa's. A deep voice came from the back of the car. Assistant Zhang snapped back to his senses and turned the car around. Supreme Alliance's failure would always bring about some side effects. He Honghua had been on a business trip, but after watching the video, her first reaction was to go home. Of course, when they were discussing a collaboration, they looked at the team with more potential. The moment she saw the results, she apologized to He Honghua and chose Fu Zhongyi. At that moment, He Honghua's heart had been gripped by the youngster in the video. Without further discussion, she had brought her team back to Jiang City. Losses were unavoidable. To everyone, the word loss was not something that could be easily forgotten. Even when she closed her eyes, she was still staring at her wrist. She still wasn't strong enough. At the Feng residence, Feng Yi was still on the phone. Fortunately, that person's return had diverted the media's attention to a certain extent. Many of the fans were in low spirits. Even the Supreme Alliance members were the same. Lin Yun's family was very close. It was so close that Lin Feng arched a brow when he saw the figure sitting in front of the computer after his shower. He didn't use the main door. Instead, he opened the window and followed the railing to the balcony before knocking on that person's window. Yin, who placed the documents in his hands down and walked over, pulling the floor-to-ceiling window open. Aren't you afraid of the cold? Why wouldn't I be? I'm freezing to death. Lin Feng supported himself with his arms and jumped up. Hurry, towel. My hair is still wet. Yin, who watched him. The collar of his t-shirt was pulled wide, the water from his black hair dripping onto it, making him look even fairer. Yin, whose eyes dimmed, tossing a towel over. Unfortunately, a certain someone didn't understand the principle of keeping a distance between men. He wiped his hair roughly and laid on the bed, looking extremely playful. I'll sleep here tonight. Yin, who crossed his arms. I'll give you a minute, go back. Don't be so petty, Lin Feng muttered. We haven't slept together in a long time. Yin, who arched a brow. Don't we sleep together in school? One above and one below, it doesn't count. Lin Feng sat up. He still looked handsome. I'm not dirty. Why are you complaining? Besides, I know you're in a bad mood today. I'm here to comfort you. Yin, who looked at the person who had never cared about anything since he was young, but would jump in front of him at the crucial moment. For some reason, his heart softened. In the courtyard, there was no lack of fighting. He still remembered that this guy once saw him surrounded by people. It didn't matter if he was the one who hit the other or the other. He threw his backpack on the ground and pounced on the other party. In the end, his face was covered in bruises. You're not allowed to bully Huzi. Scram. As long as he thought of that person's appearance at that time, Yunhu couldn't help but laugh. You're really not leaving? Lin Feng was very determined. I'm not leaving. Sure. Yunhu turned his handsome face over. You should know that I can't control myself when I'm asleep. Lin Feng thought for a moment and asked in a low voice, you still haven't gotten rid of your habit of having wet dreams the moment you fall asleep? Yunhu glanced at the man, his gaze deep. He won't recover. As long as this guy slept beside him, it wouldn't get better. This matter had to start from when they were 16 years old. That day, Yunhu was obviously drunk and couldn't control himself when he attacked a certain someone. Yunhu could still remember the expression on that person's face at that time. It was just a light kiss and his entire body had stiffened like a dumpling. He had looked at him as though he was looking at bacteria. That gaze was still fresh in his memory. He was afraid of the estrangement when he woke up the next day. The moment he opened his eyes, Yunhu asked calmly, did I do anything yesterday? That person glared. You don't remember? I remember, I had a dream. The calmer Yunhu was, the tighter his grip became. He watched as that person heaved a sigh of relief. You scared me to death. It's fine, you just had a wet dream. I'll just treat it as a form of friendship. My first kiss is gone, F***ck. However, everything was an excuse. There wasn't any dream. He was just worried that he would be pushed away. Ever since that day, Yunhu understood where his tolerance was. Hence, when a certain someone hugged his pajamas and climbed over the wall to sleep with him, he immediately chased that fellow back home. Why aren't we sleeping together? That fellow had been asking him this question for an entire week. But very quickly, they were living in the same dormitory with different beds. I asked my mom to pull some strings. Why did you have to do so well in your exams? I crammed for a month before I managed to catch up. Now that we're in the same dormitory, let's celebrate. Shall we go overnight? That day, a certain someone was in the internet cafe, leaning on his shoulder and sleeping soundly. At that time, they had opened the first version of Hero. Hence, he didn't want to lose. I'll say this first, you can have wet dreams but don't touch me. Lin Feng tilted his head. I'm ticklish. Yunhu reached out to extinguish the light. This isn't easy to control. F***ck, think about it, I'm a man sleeping beside you, my thoughts would definitely be smaller. Lin Feng turned over. In an instant, the two handsome faces were extremely close to each other. Yunhu's eyes were on him. Lin Feng felt inexplicably uncomfortable. I have experience in this area. It'll be fine if you don't always think about girls. You have experience? What experience? Yunhu's voice suddenly turned cold. Who did you dream about? Lin Feng shook his head. Not yet, I haven't found a girlfriend. Why was he so fierce? Yunhu shut his eyes, his nose straight. Sleep, there shouldn't be any dreams today. Are you not in the mood after losing the competition? Lin Feng heaved a long sigh. Me too. If Little Spade wasn't around, Supreme Alliance would have lost even more miserably. He seems to be in a lot of pain. Why was he sent to the police station? If the media finds out, it would be another storm. Yunhu opened his eyes dark and bright. With Captain around, this can be resolved. Don't forget, we still have the revival match. Of course I didn't forget. Lin Feng laughed. We will definitely revive successfully and continue to conquer the National League. MMH, Yunhu replied, closing his eyes again. Lin Feng glanced over, hugging his pajamas, no different from when he was young. The corners of his mouth were still curled up, and he didn't realize that the person next to him would kiss his handsome face after he fell asleep. How much gentleness was there in this world? How much was there to kick him when he was down? Ever since Shui Yaoyao entered the Jiang family, she hadn't heard the laughter in her ears. She and the Jiang family had always been incompatible. The Jiang family was in the entertainment industry and had more banquets than other wealthy families. Shui Yaoyao didn't know how her mother adapted. Just by sitting there, Shui Yaoyao felt a little tired. It was probably because she had lost the competition. That was why she was like this. Now the moment she closed her eyes, The image of the youngster's left hand with a bloody wound appeared in her mind. 1 against 2. Those accusations. That person shouldn't have to bear it. If only she had been revived a little earlier. If she had revived earlier, the outcome would have been different. She knew that when she entered this industry, she was prepared to be loved and scolded. But she didn't understand. What was wrong with the youngster who had worked so hard and had never lost? Shui Yaoyao lowered her eyes and put something in her mouth, her mind clearly not on this. But there were also people who Han Susu knew. They chuckled softly. It's just a competition, it's fine if you lost. Why are you so pathetic? Cinderella has woken up from her dream, her only way out is gone. How can she not be pathetic? You don't know, the loser young Master Fu who argued with us because of this person was splashed with coke by his fans. He is so unpopular, how can he be the vice captain? It doesn't make sense for such a person to be the vice captain. Stop talking, be careful, or Yaoyao will flip out. The few of them laughed as they talked. They were like this because they knew that the fatty wouldn't do anything in such an occasion. However, it was obvious that they were wrong this time. Under everyone's gaze, Shui Yaorao placed her tray down, walking towards the person who was closest to Han Susu. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. People like you don't understand how good that person is. Since you don't understand games, please shut up. The person paused, seemingly angered by Shui Yaoyao's actions. He opened his mouth. What is this? She really flipped out. I think a young miss like you should learn from a young age. Don't gossip about others behind their backs. Supreme Alliance's win or loss has nothing to do with you. My Jio's situation has nothing to do with you. When Shui Yaorao said this, she obviously didn't care about the things she shouldn't say, or the things that would put her mother in a difficult position. Because she couldn't protect that person in the competition. She had seen with her own eyes that the youngster had shouldered everything with a pale face. Outside the competition, she didn't want to hear anyone slandering the youngster. Jiang Zhua had been standing at the side, his hand still holding a glass of wine. When he heard Shui Yaoyao's words, he paused, his gaze empty. Mother Shui hurried over, pulling Shui Yaoyao to the side. I want to move out. Shui Yaoyao looked at Mama Shui. Mom, this place isn't suitable for me. I know that Uncle Jiang brought me here because he wants our family to be harmonious. If reporters find out that I'm living outside, they'll definitely write some nasty things. This time, I won't tell anyone. Mother Shui paused. She was experienced and had suffered. Yaoyao, this is the first time I'm hearing you say no, isn't it important? The person you defended just now. Mh. Shui Yaoyao wanted to tell Mother Shui that he was the person who had allowed her to return to school, but she had promised the youngster not to say anything. Mother Shui laughed. Someone you like? Shui Yaoyao blushed. This was a huge misunderstanding. She wanted to explain. Mother Shui fished out a stack of money, stuffing it into Shui Yaoyao's hands. You can move out, take this money. Mom. Before Shui Yaoyao could finish her sentence, Mother Shui cut her off. Mother Shui cut her off. It's not the Jiang family's money, it's the money from the previous stall. You've grown up, don't think that I don't know about you running every day to lose weight. I'm living quite well with the Jiang family now, and your Uncle Jiang treats me very well. You don't have to worry about me here, just buy whatever you need to buy. I've watched the video of your competition, my daughter looks really beautiful in the uniform. Mom. Shui Yaoyao couldn't help but reach out, hugging the warm person. Mother Shui patted her back. Do whatever you want while you're still young. I don't know anything. I used to think that gaming was useless, but after you lost yesterday, I realized that it wasn't just a game. It doesn't matter if you don't win the national championship, as long as you like it. Shui Yaoyao mumbled, afraid that she would cry. After keeping the money, she didn't cry, but her eyes were bright and clear. Even her back view when she left was tall and straight. Everyone was growing up through failure. Only then would they become more indestructible. Outside the Jiang family's villa, Shui Yaoyao didn't expect to bump into Jiang Zhua, her brother in name, the moment she stepped out. She paused for a moment, wanting to walk around him. But she didn't expect to be grabbed by the wrist. He pulled her back harshly. You want to move out so badly? Jiang Zhua's voice was low. and it sounded heavy when one listened carefully. Shui Yaoyao glanced over. You don't want to see me either, just move out. Is it because I don't want to see you? Or because of Fujio? Jiang's was stared at her and suddenly laughed. He let go of her hand, stuffing one hand into his pocket, and said with the smell of alcohol. How much do you know about that person? You've become so bold. That person will never like you. Stop dreaming, listen to your brother. Wash up and go to bed, understand? Shui Yaoyao smiled too. Everyone is telling me to stop dreaming. You're so fat, so you should be like this. I used to think so too in the past, but things changed. I met that person, so why can't I dream too? Because I'm poor, because I'm fat? Maybe I won't be like those girls you know. When they like you, they spend so much money on everyone, and let everyone confess to you. I can't do that, because I'm not dreaming. I'm very sure that one day I'll become the person I want to be. When I meet the person I like again, I'll still do it the same way as before. I'll accompany and familiarize myself with him. Confessing is a person's business. I won't let anyone else do it for me. If he doesn't accept it, then forget it. I can't just wash and sleep. Jiang's hand in his pocket shook. He looked at the back of the figure that he thought would never leave before him. He clenched his fists tightly, so tightly that even his eyes were filled with coldness. Unknowingly, some things had gotten out of his control. Was this what she meant by like? Didn't she like him? Bang. Jiang's raised his hand and punched the wall at the side. When the chauffeur rushed over, he saw this scene and called out hesitantly. Young master. Jiang's tugged the tie on his suit, and used it to wipe the blood on the back of his hand. He lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, Send Miss out and see where she stays. Yes. The chauffeur didn't dare to hesitate. He started the car and drove down the slope. When he saw Shui Yaoyao, he immediately stopped the car. Miss, let me send you out, it's not safe at night. Shui Yaoyao didn't reject him. It wasn't easy to get a cab here. With the chauffeur sending her, it wouldn't be too cold. Just as she boarded the car, her phone rang. It was a voice message from Feng Shang, and he stuttered slightly. Yao sister Yaoyao, where are you? I am with a uncle. We met for the first time at the internet cafe here. Are you busy? No, come over if you're not busy. A uncle said there's a training session for you and me. Shui Yaoyao's eyes lit up, and she said, I'll go over now. Come. Feng Shang pressed the phone. Train well. In the future there won't be a need to be like today. Mh. Shui Yaoyao understood Feng Shang's feelings. Especially when the car passed by the huge square. There was an emotion that would become more obvious. At that time, she had never thought that she would become a professional player. But here rose petals fell. The youngster held the uniform in her hands, smiling faintly as she handed their future to them. This time, it was time for them to work hard. The internet cafe was still bustling with business. Shui Yaoyao pushed the door open and walked in. Uncle Ian had a cigarette in his mouth, still looking decadent and handsome. Hey, you're here, let's begin. Everything was the same as the first time they met. Everyone didn't change. Instead, they were even more certain of their future direction. The night deepened a few degrees. The villa in the south of the city. The lights were brightly lit. Old Master and was undoubtedly happy. After all, he only had one grandson. He got someone to prepare a table full of dishes. When Qin Mo ate, he didn't act any different from usual. After the meal, the grandfather and grandson played chess. When the chess piece landed, Qin Mo opened his mouth. Grandfather, I'm going to make a move on the Wu family. Old Master An's fingers paused. Make a move on the Wu family? Yes. Qin Mo lifted his lids. He had always been respectful to the elderly. I came to inform grandfather in advance. If there are no accidents, they will come to grandfather's place tomorrow. I don't want grandfather to hear any false rumors. I can tell grandfather first that no one is trying to sow discord. Wu Zhan's actions are enough for me to send her to court. My attitude won't change. I hope grandfather won't stop me when the time comes. Old Master An looked at his grandson and let out a long sigh. Wu Zhan likes you too much. I have never given her any response. Even in front of his grandfather, Qin Mo didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. There is no love in this world that can be achieved by hurting the most important person to me. What I am doing now is a legitimate retaliation. Old Master knew he couldn't persuade him, so he didn't say anything else. After the age of 6, his grandson didn't follow him anymore. He knew some things had to be left to the younger generation to handle. Even if he personally liked Wu Zhen, he couldn't. But such a lifelong matter couldn't be forced. On the Wu family side, he would think of another way. Old Master watched his grandson who was playing chess with him. This child, other than being angered in America when you were young, you don't have any expressions at all when you grew up. Qin Mo glanced up. When I was young. When you were 5 or 6, have you forgotten? Grandpa seemed to have thought of something funny. He stroked his beard and laughed. At that time, you were often pressed under the girl in the next room. You couldn't even move. You even said that when you became a police officer, the first person you would arrest would be her. Qin Mo thought for a long time, but it was still a blur. Old Master shook his head. It seems like you really forgot. When she left, you were sad for a long time. Sad? Qin Mo didn't comment. Grandpa smiled and said, I just don't know where my old friend moved to, but the Bo family is so strange. They never stay in one place for a long time. Bo. Qin Mo paused because of the family name. Old Master arched a brow. Why? Did you remember something? No. Qin Mo just remembered Zi's surname, which was Bo. If they didn't talk about the Wu family, there would be fewer conflicts. After leaving the villa, Qin Mo glanced at his phone. It was empty. There was nothing on it. The profile picture on his WeChat was also very quiet. Perhaps he should give the youngster some time. Because once he opened his mouth, if it was a rejection, he wasn't sure what he would do. Qin Mo thought about what the youngster had said today. Brother Mo, I'm straight, and I will be in the future. Wasn't he straight as well? But he would be crazy to fall in love with such a person. The next day, the sun shone down on her body, warming her. Bojio didn't go anywhere. Firstly, her relative hadn't left. Secondly, there wouldn't be any competitions for the next 7 days. She could rest and do some cover-up work. She knew that Wu Zhen hadn't found anything. If there was any concrete information, the crime squad wouldn't have done it. He was trying to find a reason to lock her up in there. If there was a second time, it would be troublesome. Hence, she gave her partner a call. Be my defense lawyer in the future, and I'll give you a piece of information regarding your ex-wife. Speak. Lawyer Bai wasn't a long-winded person, which was one of the reasons Bojio admired him. The information shows that you have a 5-year-old child. Thank you for informing me so early. That 5-year-old child is in my law firm now. He asked me to stay away from his mother. The man tugged his tie, narrowing his eyes at the child in front of him. Bojio smiled. Congratulations, we'll talk another day. If she didn't hang up now, how long would she be waiting for? After she was done with all this, when she was free, that handsome and abstinent face appeared in her mind again. She shook her head, glancing at the mirror. The wound on her lips hadn't healed. Even though it was thin, she could feel it with a single lick. She wiped it with the back of her hand instinctively. The youth's entire body also leaned backwards. Chapter 698. Afternoon. The in-family villa. It was just as Qin Mo had said. Old Master Wu appeared on time. But Old Master Wu was smart. It should be said that people of their age understood that before they did anything, they had to think it over. He didn't bring Wu Zhen. Instead, he brought a box of good tea, saying that he wanted to chat with an old friend. Old Master Wu talked about many things. Most of them were experiences they had gone through when they were young. Old Master listened, nodding from time to time, a smile on his lips. When the topic was about the same, Old Master Wu then said, once Zhener falls in love with someone, he will act rashly, to the point where he doesn't even have a chance to explain himself. I've spoiled him, but you know Zhener's character. Nothing had ever happened to these two juniors, but this time, Zhener had arrested one of his team members. That team member was probably a scheming person, and things had turned out this way. Olden, we've known each other for so many years. It's not worth it for a small team member. You've seen how Jean treats Qin Mo. But there are some things that can't be helped. She chose to be a police officer because she wanted to be closer to Qin Mo. But who knew that things would turn out this way? Jean doesn't have any ill intentions towards that member. She just brought him to ask some questions. If this makes Qin Mo unhappy, Jean can apologize. Why do you have to take this to court? It hurts their relationship. After Old Master heard the entire story, he finally said, Old Wu, let the younger generation handle their own matters. My grandson has always been indifferent since he was young, and I can't control his actions. Old friend, let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart. If Jean really did something wrong, please stop. Old Master wasn't muddle-headed, he had his own connections and judgment. Last night, after his grandson came, he contacted some of his old friends in Jiang City. Although he was a businessman, he wasn't involved in such matters. But he knew that the crime squad's most important case couldn't be handed over to a police station. Besides, after asking around, it was clear that the police station's director had received benefits from the Wu family. Therefore, it was clear at a glance what was going on. It wasn't without reason that his grandson would come at night. After all, his grandson had always been protective of the esports team. He definitely couldn't tolerate someone finding trouble with his team members. They even locked him up. Grandpa had specially watched the match this morning. He was injured, but he was still able to hold on until that point. He probably saw the shadow of his grandson in the young man. Therefore, Grandpa did not intend to intervene in this matter. As an old friend, I just wanted to give you a reminder. Old Master Wu did not expect to hear such an answer. It was impossible not to be surprised. However, he quickly calmed down and didn't reveal anything. His expression was different when he went out of Anne's villa. Wu Zhen was still waiting in the car. When she saw Old Master Wu, she sat up straight. Grandpa, how is it? What did Grandpa say? Old Master Wu glanced at his granddaughter, lowering his voice. The problem lies with Qin Mo. Olden can't make the decision. But Jean, listen to me, you have to stop. Chapter 699. Old Master Wu couldn't bear to see his granddaughter in such a state. He shut his eyes. Do you know why Grandpa wants you to stop? If your grandpa helps Qin Mo investigate the details of your mission this time, it won't be as simple as going to court. Your grandpa's attitude is clear now. He already knows some things, and he doesn't want to help anyone. But you have to consider Qin Mo's capabilities. So Jean, stop. Wu Zhen wanted to say something. But her phone rang. It was Director Huang. Wu Zhen's face darkened the moment she received the call. It wasn't an ordinary phone call. It was a call informing her that from today onwards, she would be removed from the crime squad. Wu Zhen tightened her grip on her phone, her eyes heavy. She didn't want to be the one who violated the most basic principles of a police officer, especially a member of the crime squad. Instead, she pushed the blame onto someone else. She probably didn't like this job from the bottom of her heart. Wu Zhen wouldn't understand that her actions weren't worthy of wearing that uniform. After hanging up, Wu Zhen's eyes were venomous. Grandpa, I worked hard for more than a year to enter the crime squad. But now I'm being kicked out because of that person. I won't let this matter rest. Grandpa isn't helping us now, but once he finds out what that person is thinking about Brother Mo, he will definitely help us. I'll listen to Grandpa and swallow my anger. I'll take a step back, and when the time is right, I'll get back at him. Old Master Wu chuckled. It's good that you think that way. Where there's life, there's hope. Once the storm blows over, everything will be fine. Unfortunately, Qin Mo didn't intend to let the storm blow over. He sent a lawyer to fight the case. Old Master Wu also made use of his connections. He had originally thought that Qin Mo was just a junior. But in the end he was wrong. Wu Zhen was stripped of her police license. If it wasn't for Old Master Wu's connections, she would probably be in jail for a few more days. A huge sum of money was spent, but it wasn't enough to protect his granddaughter's reputation in court. Wu Zhen wasn't convinced at first. Her status was there, and she knew very well what to say to turn this matter into a small one. When the judge questioned her, she only emphasized one point. He's very suspicious, so I brought him to the police station to interrogate him. I'm just working on a case. The reason why Wu Zhen was fearless was because of the system. Unexpectedly, the opposing party's lawyer pushed his spectacles and said, "Arresting a suspect isn't wrong. We have never doubted Miss Wu Zhen's actions. However, the main point is that Miss Wu Zhen's actions were filled with strong personal emotions and caused actual harm to my people. My side has the right to sue Miss Wu Zhen for abusing her power for personal gain." When Wu Zhen heard this, her face turned pale. That was because she knew very well in her heart who was the one who came up with this excuse. "Big brother Mo, you're too cruel." Wu Zhen's hands clenched and loosened. No, it wasn't Brother Mo's ruthlessness. It was the existence of some people that caused the conflict between her and Brother Mo. She couldn't even be a police officer because of it. This vengeance. Chapter 700. The traffic outside the window changed, and the temperature started to change. Ever since the semifinals, Bojio hadn't shown her face. This worried Feng Shang, the money player in Zone C. He decided to sneak out when Feng Yi wasn't paying attention. His destination was the Fu family's mansion. Feng Shang was prepared to sacrifice himself to comfort his idol. Unexpectedly, his idol wasn't upset, and was playing the little tyrant on the floor. Everyone must have played Super Mario before. His idol was playing seriously, a thermos bag in his arms and a glass of brown sugar water beside him. Feng Shang glanced at the glass of water. "This is. I knew you were coming, so I cooked it for you. It's cold outside, so it'll warm you up." The youngster placed the handle of the game on the floor, a devilish smile on her face. Feng Shang was touched, holding the glass of brown sugar water with both hands. Idol, how did you know that I like to drink sugar water?" Bojio glanced up at the ceiling. She had overestimated her baby Feng's intelligence. "Drink it, there's more in the kitchen." MMH. Feng Shang nodded, his eyes bright. Bojio seemed to have thought of something. She leaned forward, her left hand supporting Feng Shang's back as she pulled her face closer. In an instant, Feng Shang's face turned red. "Oh, idol you're not gay, are you? You don't have a crush on me, right?" Bojio arched a brow. Feng Shang's eyes widened. "Oh, how is that possible? I like girl. Oh." Bojio knew what he was thinking. After asking, she retracted her hand. What did he mean by "oh"? Feng Shang stuttered as he tried to explain. I worship my idol, that's right, but I am straight. Especially straight." Bojio watched baby Feng's blushing face, muttering to herself. He's so popular, but the Almighty isn't interested. How did he fall for her? Idol, what are you saying?" Feng Shang wanted to listen carefully. Bojio caressed his head, leaning over, her voice landing beside Feng Shang's ears. "If I do this, will you kiss me?" Feng Shang looked at the handsome face in front of him. It was so handsome that his heart skipped a beat. But that wasn't the point. Most importantly, his idol had taken a liking to him, and he wasn't gay. How do I solve this problem? I'm waiting online. Do you want to? Bojio lowered her voice. Feng Shang couldn't take it anymore. He pushed her away and panicked. No, I don't want to. After rejecting him, Feng Shang regretted it. Did he hurt his idol's heart? Feng Shang glanced at the person on the ground. His idol seemed to be talking to himself again. Vaguely, she could hear a voice that was neither too high nor too low. Baby Feng is such an easy person to turn gay, yet he didn't have any reaction. Then it's not my problem. He must have been gay from the very beginning. He was gay from the very beginning? Who? Feng Shang had a stomach full of questions. Also, what do you mean by baby Feng is so easily turned gay? He was very straight. Fortunately, after this period of time, the idol finally returned to normal. He just sat lazily on the wooden floor, exuding a noble aura. Feng Shang let out a long sigh. He could finally drink his brown sugar water in peace. But what's wrong with my idol today? Chapter 701. Feng Shang couldn't figure it out, hence, he decided to approach from another angle. Where's the princess? Him. At the Almighty's house. Bojio switched to another game, preparing to organize her thoughts. If the Almighty had been gay from the start and had fallen for her cross-dressing, how was she going to resolve this problem? Based on the Almighty's repulsion towards girls, if he found out that the brother he confessed to was actually a girl, Bojiu narrowed her eyes. Would he feel cheated? Feng Shang looked at the handsome face in front of him that was like that of a vampire aristocrat. He felt that he could probably understand his idol's feelings and empathized with him. When I was young, I also had a pet. If it suddenly left, it's true that I'm not used to it. Bojiu glanced up. Feng Shang straightened immediately, his expression serious. This kind of thing. Will be fine once you get used to it. Idol, you're young. Did you have other pets when you were young? Pets. When she was young. Suddenly, an image of a little boy appeared in her mind. He looked at her as though she was a germ. He was arrogant, but he was just too adorable. She had always wanted to bring him home, especially when she had pounced on him. The little boy had looked as though he wanted to tear her into pieces. He had been too adorable. But the little boy had been obedient. When she had touched him on the keyboard, he had merely glanced at her, allowing her to experience it herself. She had even fed the little boy before. Even though he had developed an allergic reaction, he hadn't said anything, allowing her to hug him to sleep. With that in mind, she spat out 2 words. Yes. Oh? Is that a cat or a dog? Feng Shang had wanted to discuss the fun and insights of rearing pets with his idol. Bojiu stood up, her lips lifting into a smile. Human. Human. Feng Shang jumped. How could that be considered a pet? Did his idol have a fundamental misunderstanding of pets? That night, the skies outside darkened gradually. There would always be offensive comments on the internet. Some of the club's shareholders approached Feng Yi, telling him that they had to pay attention to the image of their team members. After the loss, many people lost confidence in Supreme Alliance. There's a variety show on a satellite channel that's targeted at esports players. Xiangnan's people will be participating as well, and the duration will be 2.5 days. Not only will they be able to leave a good impression on the audience, it won't affect the revival match 5 days later. The problem now is how to convince Boss Qin to participate. The other party is eyeing Boss Qin's popularity. If not, Supreme Alliance wouldn't have been invited even if they had already lost. In the past, Coco would have been able to attend such events, but it's obviously not possible this time. It's a variety show that showcases the teamwork between the team members. Both of them have to participate, and it's mainly up to President Qin. I don't think it's easy to say. Everyone in Jiang City knew that young Master Qin didn't participate in any interviews, let alone this kind of variety show. Feng Yi didn't think so. On the contrary, he seemed to have thought of something, his lips curving into a sly smile. 2 people are required to participate, and the journey is 2.5 days. Does it start from the moment they wake up? Most outdoor variety shows are like this. Feng Yi closed the proposal in his hands. I'll convince CEO Qin. The condition of sleeping together should be tempting enough. Chapter 702. Meow Meow. It was rare to see anyone raise a cat like this. Beside the soft carpet, there were wine bottles. Then there were all kinds of electronic data cables. This was a rare toy for a cat. But everyone knew that Princess was too fierce compared to other cats. It always thought it was a tiger. It pounced at the pile of cables, but its face was too big and it got entangled. Meow meow meow. This was the scene Qin Mo saw after his shower. A cat with electronic data cables all over its body. According to Qin Mo's habit, he wouldn't care about it. With a white towel over his head, he opened the small fridge. Other than wine, there was also expensive mineral water. Princess looked at her overly handsome master. She watched as he unscrewed the mineral water bottle and tilted his head back to drink. His perfect abs and black hair dripping with water were really too sexy. If that strange guy saw this, he would definitely pounce on its master. So it must protect its master. Meow. Thinking of this, Princess waved its paw again. This time the whole cat died. Qin Mo, who was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, was a little careless. His dark eyes were placed outside the foggy window, until the water droplets from his black hair dripped on his fingers. Then he looked away and glanced at the number that hadn't rung yet. It had been 3 days since he kissed that guy. 3 days. Not to mention showing up, there wasn't even a message. Chin Mo lifted his lids and drank another mouthful of water. This time, his actions were slightly more ferocious. A cat was a very sensitive animal. As if it had sensed the cold aura emanating from its owner's body. The princess who had broken free cleverly took a step back. Just like that, it walked proudly beside its nest. Perhaps its owner wouldn't be in such a bad mood after appreciating its handsomeness. It could be said that princess was thinking too much. Chin Mo didn't look at it. After the phone screen lit up, he tilted his head and lit a cigarette. With his upper body bare, he pressed the answer button. Say it. One word, neither cold nor indifferent. Feng Yi was obviously used to the Almighty's style. There was still a smile at the corner of his mouth. There is a variety show on Orange Station. This station's ratings have always been the first in the country. The club's investors want CEO Chin to. Chin Mo was about to hang up when he heard that. Feng Yi was too familiar with this person's actions. He hastened his words. Simply put, there's a program that allows you to sleep with Little Spade for 2 days. Do you want to participate? The air froze for a moment. Chin Mo pressed the phone against his ear again, his voice calm. Time. What time? Feng Yi was puzzled. Chin Mo pulled the towel down, covering his black hair. He looked like an ancient prince. Time to participate in the show. CEO Chin, is it okay for you to change your attitude so quickly? Feng Yi couldn't help but ask. Was he too lazy to hide now? Chin Mo blew a puff of smoke and smiled. Young Master Feng, have I been treating you too well recently? Feng Yi wasn't as naive as Feng Shang. He knew that Chin Mo wouldn't have a good ending if he called someone short. Chapter 703. Chin Mo took a puff. Who arranged the script? Old Wei. Feng Yi tugged at his tie. I just had a drink with him, and managed to get some information out of him. Chin Mo extinguished his cigarette. Your alcohol tolerance isn't at its limit. You don't know how much I can drink. How can I possibly reach my limit? Feng Yi was best at discussing business at the dining table. Chin Mo replied faintly. Then let's go for another drink and get him to add more intimate scenes. Feng Yi. A request that caught him off guard. To think that it was such a request. Boss Chin, it's such a pity that you aren't an actor. Chin Mo sat down, his legs long. You flatter me. Let me make things clear. I'm here to help Little Spade gain popularity. Chin Mo arched a brow. Do you think he won't be popular with me? Yes, everyone knows you're the best in the game. You relied on your unbelievable skills to get this far. Chin Mo interrupted him. I thought I relied on my face to get to where I am now. Feng Yi. That wasn't wrong. Once the script is done, I'll agree to attend one more event, Chin Mo promised. It wasn't easy to get Almighty Chin to attend an event. It had to be done willingly. Feng Yi fastened his tie, resuming his role as an elite vice president. I'll get Old Wei to add in the intimate scenes now. Add in a lot more. He hung up. Chin Mo's gaze swept over another number. He even glanced at the WeChat profile picture. Since it wasn't enough, he would continue. When Chin Mo reached for the water, he paused abruptly. His gaze swept over his wrist, his dark eyes glistening like jewels, deep and unfathomable. The next day, the first call she received was from Lawyer Bai. I don't have to do anything about the Wu family anymore. Closing the documents, his spectacles flashed. It'll probably be difficult for Wu Zhen to enter the agency again, much less stay in the crime squad. If it was a local agency, she might be able to settle it with some money, but the crime squad is still the crime squad. Moreover, the Qin family seems to have made a move. As a business partner, shouldn't you tell me why the Qin family helped you? Bo Jiu smiled. I'm a member of Supreme Alliance, and Supreme Alliance belongs to the Qin group. Are you satisfied with this explanation? A perfect excuse. The man crossed his legs. But high school student, do you think I haven't seen Supreme Alliance's official Weibo? It's full of lovey-dovey. In the past, Bo Jiu could still confidently say that it was a brotherly relationship. Now Bojo remained silent. Lawyers usually stop where they're going. This was especially true for those with the surname Bai. Bojo didn't have to think to know that the Almighty had taught Officer Wu a lesson. However, there were some things that Boss Bai was wrong about. It was because the key case investigation unit was different. The Almighty wouldn't allow anyone to use their power to destroy it. The reason why some people feared the crime squad was because it hadn't been corrupted. Officer Wu's actions didn't just challenge the bottom line. Bojo stood up, walking towards the machine, and was about to head down. Her phone rang again. Chapter 704. Of course, Feng Yi wasn't going to tell the youngster about the program since it was arranged by the production team to make it more interesting. He smiled slyly. I'm informing you that there's a training in Lin City. Interprovincial training? Bojo arched a brow. The experienced manager Feng had already thought of an excuse. The loss this time will affect everyone's morale. Lin City has mountains and water and is located by the sea. It will reduce the pressure on everyone. Bojo retracted her long legs, giving up on the idea of going to the basement. When are we leaving? Today. Feng Yi raised his wrist to check the time. The company has already booked the ticket for you. There will be someone to pick you up in an hour. Pack your things and bring a change of clothes. The most important thing is to look good. Bojo glanced up nonchalantly. Dressing up is important for training now? It's mainly because you're too popular. It's inevitable that there will be fans fetching you. Feng Yi signed a document before chuckling lightly. I don't need to remind you about your image. Bojo sat down sloppily. Don't worry, I'll always be handsome. Feng Yi. It was no wonder the Almighty had taken a liking to her. In terms of narcissism, they were basically the same. Bring along your sunscreen. There won't be a gathering this time. Everyone will head out separately and meet at the hotel. Feng Yi wanted to say something, but was afraid of leaking too much. That's all. I have work to do here. I'll hang up first. Wait for someone to fetch you. Sure. Bojo had always been efficient. After hanging up, she opened a lollipop and placed it in her mouth before starting to pack her luggage. There were indeed some things she had to bring, especially the chest bandage. But fortunately, it was a request for today's training. If it had been 2 days ago, she would have found an excuse to avoid it. Lin City wasn't a bad place. But that was if she didn't go swimming. With this in mind, Bojo decided to bring a short-sleeved black t-shirt and white shorts. Even if there was a seaside event, it was safe enough. Since the temperature in Lin City was high, there wasn't a need to bring heavy clothes. But there was a little. Since it was a training, she would have to meet the Almighty. The youngster paused. According to the Almighty's style, he probably wouldn't mention it if she didn't bring it up. Based on this understanding, she would slowly pull the Almighty back. But that would take some time. This time, as long as he didn't stay with the Almighty, everything else was fine. Crack. The luggage was packed. Bojo glanced at her reflection in the mirror. There was nothing wrong with it. Feng Yi was reliable. He said that someone would pick him up in an hour. Time would never exceed that range. But after entering the car, Bojo realized they looked unfamiliar. I've never seen you guys in the club. Are you new people? The reason he asked that was because there was another person in the back seat other than the driver. The two of them nodded hurriedly. Yes, he's a newcomer. When he reaches Forest City, he'll be one of us. Bojo chuckled. Thank you. Not at all, not at all. I was just startled by your question, Big Spade. The two of them looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything. The car drove very steadily. Bojo wasn't a talkative person. She wore a pair of pure black earrings and stared out the window. Chapter 705. They entered the airport, went through security and checked in. Bojo stood in front of the cameraman while she was doing all this. No one would be able to tell from this angle. The scene was perfect. Especially when the youngster lowered his lids and smiled faintly as he thanked the staff. His back view was 100 points. The cameraman had a premonition that when this scene was shown on the big screen, It would definitely cause a bunch of fans to bubble with happiness. He had been in the industry for a long time and had photographed many famous celebrities. Even those in the industry didn't look as good without makeup as the youngster. More importantly, his attitude was different. The youngster didn't intentionally express anything, but it was precisely because of this naturalness that he stood out from the rest. But it would be a waste of words. He still had to rely on his face. The youngster was handsome, especially when he held the boarding pass in his mouth. If he added a pair of ears, he would definitely be handsome. It was a pity that he couldn't film to his heart's content. Bojio didn't notice the cameraman's thoughts. In fact, most people wouldn't think they were filming a show. It wasn't the first time they were doing training. There wouldn't be any suspicions. There would usually be a coffee shop in the airport. Bojio didn't forget to buy 3 cups when she wanted to drink. She hung the straw while glancing at the boarding gate. When it was time, she lifted the black luggage. From the beginning to the end, his actions were all very handsome. But the cameraman and storyboard director noticed that the youngster didn't seem to like talking. It was one thing to be polite and another to like to talk. Wouldn't this create a variety show effect? Ordinary viewers knew that they had to talk more when they were on the show. Only then would it be interesting. If Spadesy didn't say anything, what was there to watch? The storyboard director glanced at the hot cocoa the youngster had bought for her. Her voice muffled. I haven't seen such a person in a long time. Those who had been in the industry for a long time knew what the director was talking about. The cameraman lowered his head with a smile. You want to support him? I'm just a small director. Who can I support? The woman laughed lightly. Actually, many people have bought drinks for me. After finding out about my identity, they treated me well. The cameraman nodded. He still doesn't know our identity. I investigated him. Fans splashed Coke on him. The woman flicked the paper cup. I thought he was the kind of person who looked good on the outside. That's why people hated him so much. Turns out he's not bad. The cameraman's smile widened. With such an evaluation from you, even if he doesn't say anything, he'll still create a variety effect. Don't underestimate a storyboard director, especially one from a variety show. Whether or not they could become popular depended on their background and investments. But how could the audience like it? The storyboard director was an important role. The 3 of them got on the plane together. Bojio glanced at her phone. She was about to send Feng Shang and the others a text to ask them when their flights were. When the cameraman saw this, he immediately said, "The plane is about to take off. It's better to switch it off." Bojio didn't deviate from the norm. Although she always had her phone on when she was flying in a small plane overseas. However, there was a plane full of people here. Cooperating with others was the most basic form of respect. The plane took 2 hours from takeoff to landing. The hotel was also arranged. Chapter 706. This question. The cameraman choked. The storyboard director immediately added, "It's almost 11 p.m. You've been on the plane for a long time. Why don't you take a break?" "Sure." Bojio smiled, her handsomeness seeping into the wood. But there was a change in her gaze. "Where's the training?" It was another question that caught him off guard. The cameraman replied instinctively, "At the beach first." Gaming at the beach. Bojio arched a brow. "Is that part of Feng Yi's training? Isn't he afraid of distracting us?" The storyboard director smiled. "It's to train your concentration." Bojio turned. "I'm going to take a shower and rest. You guys can do as you please." The cameraman heaved a huge sigh of relief. The storyboard director glanced at him without a word, grabbing the phone from the youngster on the bed. When Bojio came out while drying her hair, she glanced at the empty bed. Her smile deepened. There was indeed a problem, but she wasn't worried about losing her phone. With the remote control, even if someone tried to swipe her phone, they wouldn't be able to get any information. I'm a hacker after all, stealing from hackers. Bojio shook her head, a smile still on her face. But there was one thing. These 2 people were indeed sent by Feng Yi. She had verified it before boarding the car. Hence, the question was, why was she doing things this way? It had been a long time since she played such a game of cat and mouse. The youngster lowered her lids, blowing away her silver hair. She could play with them. The three of them had dinner together. The atmosphere had been great. In the end, the youngster suddenly said, "I lost my phone, and I lost it in my room. Don't you guys think it's weird?" The storyboard director had expected this question. "You can't have lost it in your room, right? Search again. Did you forget where you placed it?" All right. Surprisingly, Bojo was easy to talk to. But the next sentence was another shock. "My phone has a special program. Even if someone finds it, they can't switch it off. I'll call a few more times at night." It wasn't just a few times. The storyboard director couldn't fall asleep. Even though the phone's ringtone was pleasant, it kept ringing. She couldn't fall asleep. "Sir, do you still want to fight?" The hotel staff blushed as she looked at the handsome young man in front of her. Bojo smiled lazily. "We'll continue at 1 p.m. So late at night? Why?" Bojo smiled mischievously. "That's because that's when humans want to rest the most." The waitress expressed that she did not understand, but the young man gave her a lot of money, and she worked the night shift, so this job was not bad. After Bojo was done, she walked back to her room. This time, she was really curious about the other party's goal. Perhaps it should be Feng Yi's purpose. In short, this was not a group training. 6 o'clock in the morning, the youth lying on the soft bed was still fast asleep. Usually at this hour, no one would get up, except for the old men and women who got up early to go for a walk. But variety shows were different. This time, other than the storyboard director and cameraman, there were two more people, one of whom was in charge of clappers. "The lights are in place. The time is okay. Let's go." The moment the storyboard director finished her sentence, someone used the room card to open the door. Chapter 707. Variety shows would usually launch a surprise attack like this in order to capture the appearance of some people who had just woken up. Usually this scene would have high ratings. But what happened to the surprise attack? Why did the lights in the room light up when they came in? The young man, who was supposed to be asleep, was sitting on the sofa in the middle of the room, swirling a glass of wine in his hand. He looked handsome and alluring. "You guys finally made a move." But after saying this, Bojo paused. She hadn't expected him to come in with a video camera. She hadn't expected that to happen. His undisguised shock was successfully recorded by the cameraman on the screen. Bojo arched a brow. "What's going on? We also want to know what happened to you. Can't you just obediently lie on the bed like a little prince who has just woken up? What was he doing attacking so early in the morning? I want to take a picture of your sleeping face." The storyboard director sighed. "You look very barefaced and sleepy." "Sorry, I didn't let you achieve your goal." Bojo glanced at them. "Is this a show? Such a high IQ." The storyboard director smiled bitterly. "Did they discover something amiss with us and capture us?" Bojo lifted her lips. "Something isn't right. Supreme Alliance's logistics isn't like this." "You're blaming us?" The storyboard director didn't appear on screen. She stretched out her hand, holding a mission card. Bojo opened it and scanned the words on it. "Spadesy, welcome to the treasure hunt. The first mission you need to complete is to wake up your partner." Bojo tilted her head. "I have a partner? Tell me, who was the other person that was tricked by that fox Feng Yi? You'll have to find it yourself." The storyboard director had a serious expression. "We don't know who it is either." Bojo smiled faintly. "Beauty, be more sincere. It's useless to call me a beauty." The storyboard director blushed, but her rationality remained. "Go, there's not much time left. His room number is on the mission card." What did it feel like to be forced to participate in a variety show and not be able to just leave like that? That was how she felt right now. She had thought it would be a game of cat and mouse, but it turned out that it was all Manager Feng's tricks. Now think. Who was the other person who had been fooled? The Almighty was the first to be excluded. The reason was simple. Bojo didn't think the Great Fox would have the guts to fool the Almighty. It could be Lin Feng or Coco. Programs like this usually focused on looks. It wasn't possible for Yin Hu. Both of their attributes were so strong. The venue would be cold. Variety shows should look at the effects of variety shows. Bojo pondered as she walked. Holding the mission card in her hand, the way she lowered her head was surprisingly cute. The photographer was very happy this time. This room? Bojo pointed at the door. The storyboard director nodded. Bojo smiled faintly. Before we enter, can you pass me my phone? I'm not used to not having any electronic devices on me. When did you know I was the one who took it? The storyboard director glared. Bojo thought for a moment. During dinner yesterday. The storyboard director. She had been listening to the ringtone all night. Why? Cell phones and wallets will be confiscated, as will those of other members. With this explanation, Bojo understood. Since the other person was as unlucky as her, it didn't matter if she didn't have a phone. Take note of the time, the director reminded softly. Chapter 708. Beep. The sensor beeped. The room was completely dark. Especially at this point, the curtains were heavily drawn, blocking out all light. For a hacker, this was the most suitable operation. It was different from the others. Bojo walked without a sound, but the cameraman and storyboard director couldn't see it. The camera lights were switched on. Under the dim light, Bojo smiled, heading towards the only white bed in the room. The shape of the blanket could be seen, but no one could tell who it was. Bojo's smile deepened. She took another step forward and reached out with her left hand. She wanted to pull the blanket off him, but Bojo's smile deepened. But no one expected it. That person suddenly exerted strength, grabbing onto her wrist, yanking it in his direction. When the sound was heard, the lights were switched on. The face that appeared in his line of sight was handsome and abstinent, noble and elegant. Especially when he was wearing pure cotton pajamas, his black hair messy and sexy. His wildness was tinged with evil, but his aura was undeniably cold. Almighty. Regardless of how smart Bojo was, she hadn't expected to see the Almighty here. Her eyes widened. He looked lazy as he watched her. He didn't move. It was probably because he had just woken up. But his eyes were very deep. The two of them were very close to each other. Their sharp noses touched. It was extremely ambiguous. The storyboard director was so excited that she kept taking pictures of the cameraman's back. The scene filled with pink bubbles could be used as a promotional video. Especially when both of them were very handsome, it gave people a sense of aesthetic impact. Chinemo watched the person he was tugging. The youngster's skin was fair and alluring, with a hint of fine hair and a dazed expression. It was satisfying. Why are you here? Chinmo's voice was calm, as though he didn't know there was such a variety show. That was the question she wanted to ask. Why was the person here the Almighty? Bojo stood up, her movements suave. She tidied her collar before replying. Fongyi tricked me. Almighty Chin, it's like this, we're doing a variety show. A little assistant was still explaining, standing beside the bed. She could only stare at the handsome face of her Adonis. The storyboard director furrowed her brows in confusion. That wasn't the script. Think carefully. Although the scene just now was very effective. But according to the script, Almighty Chin was supposed to be asleep the whole time. He just had to open his eyes. Moreover, they only dared to record Almighty Chin's participation in the show with his consent. But now, Almighty Chin was acting like he didn't know anything and even pulled Spadesy into his arms. The storyboard director was confused. Didn't they say that they would try not to let Almighty Chin have physical contact with others during the show? After all, Almighty Chin's identity was there. Almighty Chin didn't like to be too intimate with anyone. There was no need to drag Almighty Chin into this. The power of the Chin family was something that even their station head could not afford to offend. But now, why was Almighty Chin taking the initiative to get close to someone else? The storyboard director was still confused. Chinemo had already heard the little assistant's words and stood up. Little Spade, stay behind. The rest of you can leave. Almighty Chin, no, we have to film. Chinemo glanced at the camera, his fingertips brushing past the buttons of his pajamas. We have to film him changing? That isn't necessary. Why did you have to get little Spade to stay behind just to change? This had to be added in the later stages. The cameraman, the storyboard director, and the assistant were all blocked by a door. But since this was an outdoor show, even if there was a script, it couldn't be too fake. At the very least, they had to film along. Hence, before the cameraman came out, he tactfully tossed a small camera over to the youngster. Spade, you film. Film what? Film the Almighty changing clothes? That was the matter of straightening his back. She hadn't succeeded yet. It wasn't possible for her to film along. Bojo thought of an idea, aiming the camera at her face. As everyone can see, the Almighty is about to change. Let's wait for a while. Even though I want to see the Almighty's abs like all of you, it's more important to stay alive. With that, she turned the camera to the side, aiming it at the bathroom door. In reality, Chin Emo was standing on the youngster's left. He arched his body and removed his pajamas, revealing a perfect inverted triangle. I never knew you wanted to see my abs so much. Even though the image wasn't shown, the sound was recorded. Boju lifted her head, meeting a pair of eyes that were as deep as an ancient well. The black trousers and his upper body were bare, accentuating his slender legs. If such a scene was recorded, many people would have a nosebleed. The mermaid line was perfect. What is the mission? The Almighty finally put on his clothes. He was buttoning his shirt sideways. His handsome face. Bojo still had her earphones in her ears. On the other side was the production crew. When they heard the commotion, all of them rushed in. This time they could film the two of them in the same frame. The storyboard director wasn't sure why she was so excited. Bojo glanced at the Almighty. Brother Emo, my mission is to wake the person sleeping in this room. I never expected it to be you. It seems like I've successfully helped you with your first mission. Chin Emo stuffed a hand into his pocket, looking more handsome than a celebrity. Bojo was still sitting on the bed, leaning back slightly. That's right, but I think we should take a nap before moving on to the second mission. Ever since she had found out that her partner was the Almighty, she felt that it would be dangerous to participate in this variety show. Chin Emo didn't give the youngster a chance to lean back, pulling her up. You woke me up and now you want to sleep? That kind of conversation was something that only people who had a good relationship with each other could say. Right at this moment, there was a loud ding. The production crew handed over another mission card. The second mission? Bojo arched a brow. She opened the mission card and read the words on it. Other than our team members, there are other people in the game world. We have to find them before moving together to save Earth. Save Earth? It was a bluff. Seriously? You don't know the identities of the others, right? The production crew nodded. Bojo stuffed her hands into her pockets, a light smile on her face. Based on the style of your show, each team will choose 2 members. Lin Chuntao and Samping Jun will definitely be there, along with Almighty Xiao. 3 out of the 4 of them guessed correctly. The storyboard director and cameraman glanced at each other. He felt that the guest had already seen through him at the start of the show. What the hell was that? Cough. The storyboard director tried her best to maintain her composure. The person closest to you will need to take the 8 a.m. bus to find him. Bojo pointed at the Almighty's face. Forget about me, but is it really appropriate for Brother Emo to take the bus? The storyboard director didn't think it was appropriate. It was too obvious that he was an abstinent CEO. But the script was awkward. But it didn't matter. Getting the 2 of them to take the bus was a benefit for everyone. Besides, the next stop of the bus that passed by the hotel was a high school. This meant that most of the people taking the bus at this time were students. Of course, there were many middle-aged men and office workers. Hence, when Bojo and Almighty Chin walked in, some of the students who were still playing games glanced up. The second time they did so, they stilled. F***CK. What did she see? Almighty Chin. It wasn't just Almighty Chin. There was also Big Spade. Excitement was something that could be easily understood. Some of the girls had already started to cover their mouths. In fact, the production crew was slightly surprised. This was the South after all. If it was a member of Xiangnan, it wouldn't be surprising to see such a scene. Supreme Alliance was far in the north after all. Almighty Chin, it's Almighty Chin. Hurry and take a picture. I don't think it's a mistake. How could Almighty Chin appear here and take the bus? It can't be wrong, the person standing beside him is my big spade. There weren't many fans, just a few students playing games. Hence, the scene wasn't too chaotic. One of the office workers asked, "Which celebrity is he? He looks rather handsome." I don't know, that's weird. I've never seen him on TV before. The students wanted to educate them about the esports world, but after some thought, they decided against it. They were too busy to post it on their WeChat moments. More importantly, it wasn't just photos. He could still hear the conversation between the two men. The fans couldn't be happier. Forest Park, Brother Mo. Who do you think would choose such a place to meet us? It was probably related to Lin City. Even though it was 8 p.m., there were still plenty of seats on the bus. Bo Jio sat by the window while Chin Mo sat beside the youngster. Lin Chuntao, the storyboard director. Brother Mo, judging from the director's expression, we seem to have guessed it right again. The youngster lifted her lips, carrying the nobility of the Sucking Blood clan. The storyboard director was on the verge of breaking down, her chest almost crushed. The students watched from the side, unable to hold back their laughter. As a Supreme Alliance fan, they were extremely excited. Never in their wildest dreams would they have expected to meet their idol on the bus. Furthermore, it was such an idol. Almighty Chin, are you filming a variety show? One of the fans couldn't help interrupting their conversation. MMH, Chin Mo replied, his attitude polite yet distant. The production crew finally realized how real it was. The person they had seen just now must be fake. The Almighty with little spade must be fake. The fan was excited. I really like you, I really like you. Chin Mo changed his position. Thank you. 2 words. He probably felt that the response was too little. The fan's gaze dimmed. She turned towards the youngster before turning to Chin Mo. As a fan of Chin, I hope that Almighty Chin can stay away from some people. At this moment, Chin Mo smiled. His eyes were cold and calm as he said, "You can stop being a fan." The student was taken aback. He didn't expect to receive these words at all. His face was burning with embarrassment. She couldn't understand how Almighty Chin could be so disrespectful towards his fans. She didn't even consider the fact that he had gone overboard. The atmosphere was a little tense at that moment. The storyboard director didn't want any accidents during filming, hence, she shot a glance at the cameraman. The cameraman was well aware that this scene could not be allowed to continue. Will alight early and change to another bus. The other students wanted to change as well. The original benefits were gone just like that. Why had that person interfered with Almighty Chin's friendship? Honestly, Almighty Chin's fans weren't like that. They knew that Almighty Chin was filming and had interrupted once because he liked him. But after interrupting repeatedly and making such a request that crossed his bottom line, he still had a look of resentment. Great, they had to change to another bus. There's no need. Chin Mo replied faintly. That's it. That meant that, even if the scene was broadcasted, he wouldn't be bothered. In that instant, the storyboard director understood why people like Supreme Alliance so much. It wasn't fake. Perhaps this was how people wanted to be themselves. In the bus, Bo Jio held her chin. Since the weather in Lin City was warm, she only wore a black t-shirt, which was the most conspicuous in the crowd. But because of the person beside her, she was 3 times more conspicuous. More importantly, she hadn't had enough sleep because she had woken up too early. After driving for a short while, the students reluctantly got off the bus. She began to have difficulty opening her eyes, and it was obvious that her eyes were heavy. When Chin Mo tilted his head, he saw the youngster nodding down bit by bit. Actually, at this moment, the cameraman had already switched off his camera. He had waited until they reached the location. But in front of the camera, Almighty Chin reached out, placing his hand on the youngster's forehead. That kind of movement, when it appeared incomparably clearly. As the cameraman, he could only conclude one thing. They didn't seem to need to be a CP. Her every move was full of familiarity and love. If such a video was released, it would definitely cause some CP fans to cry out. And that wasn't the end. The youngster didn't seem to be completely asleep. She opened her eyes once, calling out, "Brother Mo." Almighty Chin agreed. The youngster leaned over, looking like a prince when he fell asleep, especially since his head was resting on Almighty Chin's shoulder. Everyone knew how handsome and photogenic Almighty Chin was. The storyboard director started to get excited again, patting the cameraman's back repeatedly. There was no way the cameraman wouldn't record such good material, especially when Almighty Chin tilted his head over, watching the head sliding down his shoulder. Without a second thought, he held the youngster's face, a faint smile on his lips. He seemed to be saying it intentionally for the audience. "Your skin is really smooth." The storyboard director. Chapter 709. Of course, they wouldn't let the guests sleep for too long. After about 10 minutes, they arrived at the station. Originally, he had wanted the storyboard director to call for them. However, she didn't have time to move. Almighty Chin, who was listening to the development of the script, glanced at her. Then he looked sideways, his thin lips close to the young man's ear. "Haven't you slept enough?" Although she was grateful for Almighty Chin's help, but wasn't Almighty Chin a little too close to Big Spade's ear? The storyboard director regretted not turning on the camera. It wasn't too late. He hurriedly gestured to his colleague. The cameraman immediately picked up the equipment in order to capture the most realistic effect. Through the camera lens, one could clearly see the young man's thick eyelashes tremble like a crow's wings when he heard the voice. Then he opened his eyes. There were also 2 strands of a hoge on the top of his head, which looked like a pair of cat ears. It was refreshing and handsome. This was probably the first thought everyone had when they saw the young man. However, that was when Almighty Chin wasn't around. Almighty Chin was here. The feeling of the entire scene had changed. When she had fallen asleep, she had been leaning against his shoulder. Now that she was awake, she tilted her head and the 2 of them almost kissed. Their temperaments were completely opposite. One was abstinent and noble, the other dazzling and handsome. But after they got together, he couldn't help but let his imagination wander. It was probably a problem with his posture. The way Almighty Chin turned his head to wake up Spades, he didn't look like a brother at all, but more like a boyfriend. Even the cameraman trembled. The storyboard director didn't show much on the surface, but she had long lost her composure. If she didn't hype up this couple, she would be letting down her job. As for Lin Chentao, he hadn't drunk a single drop of water since he woke up in the morning. "Well, I just want to ask who is looking for me. Could it be that he's lost? Please don't have a poor sense of direction. Would he get lost while playing hero? Hey, why are you guys ignoring me? Say something. Otherwise, I won't play with you anymore. Are you guys really not going to talk? Alright, I'll ask you one last question. Is the person who comes more handsome than me?" The cameraman glanced at his image and looked up at the sky silently. What should he do? After the program was broadcast, would there be a lot of people who would leave the fan club? They really didn't think that the rumored #1 assassin in the entire server would be so talkative. And this style. The cameraman focused on Lin Chentao once again. Almighty Lin immediately opened the cyan umbrella in his hands and really put on an assassin's outfit, which was an ancient costume. "If the person who comes to pick me up is too ugly, just tell him to go back. I'm afraid he'll cry after seeing me." Cameraman. You really think too much. Originally, he was having a great time playing by himself. But Lin Chentao saw a bus pass in front of him. Furthermore, he was very familiar with the 2 people on the bus. How could they not be familiar with each other in the WeChat group? "It's the 2 of them?" Lin Chentao's gasp was captured by the cameraman. Lin Chentao was in disbelief. When has Chin Mo ever participated in a variety show? The whole world knows he doesn't show his face. Where did your production team find a fake product? Chapter 710. Since it's them, I have to keep a low profile. Everyone knows that Chin Mo is our enemy. I have to act like a master. Lin Chentao straightened his back. Am I domineering enough? The cameraman did not want to speak anymore. When Lin Chuntao wasn't nagging, he gave off a cold and aloof aura. However, this cold and aloof demeanor only lasted for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Lin Chuntao looked at the scene of the two people kissing in the bus. He turned his head and asked, "Is your production team gay? Cameraman. Who can take him away? How can the SARFT allow you to abuse single dogs like this? There's no justice in this." Lin Chuntao was still grumbling. On the other side, Bo Jiu was already awake. She and Qin Mo alighted from the bus one after another. Follow the script. Qin Mo should be surprised to see the person in front of him. Unexpectedly, Qin Mo stuffed a hand into his pocket, looking at Lin Chuntao nonchalantly. What a surprise! The two storyboard directors were on the verge of breaking down. Bo Jiu chuckled, walking over to tug at his assassin outfit. "Your outfit is really an eyesore, cameraman." Finally, someone had spoken his mind. F***CK, don't touch me. Lin Chuntao jumped to the side. "Don't you know how to appreciate how handsome I am?" Bo Jiu arched a brow. "Honestly, I don't really understand." Qin Mo glanced over and looked at the members of the program crew. His tone was calm. "Were you the ones who made him wear the costume?" The storyboard director refused to take the blame as she shook her head vigorously. Lin Chuntao affirmed, "How could the production crew have such a handsome assassin outfit? I brought it myself." "You have standards." Bo Jiu patted his shoulder. Lin Chuntao was very proud. "Of course you don't know how poor this production crew is. I haven't even had breakfast yet." "Oh right, should I tell you the next step of the mission?" "Speak." One word. Qin Mo was the only one who could make all the cameras focus on his face. Lin Chuntao felt that he couldn't compare his looks with others. He was comparing his temperament. He raised his umbrella again, looking like an ancient hero. This person claims to be the most handsome and hero. He is the one who carries the face of the entire esports world. His motto is, "How can a man be called a man if he isn't burly?" Wait, where are the two of you going? Can you show some respect to your partner? It was rare for the three of them to walk side by side on the road around the island. If the girls and guys who often played games saw this, they would definitely surround them. The three gods of the esports circle were still alive. He was actually walking around the island. The scenery of Forest City was indeed beautiful. On one side was a blue sea and blue sky, and on the other side was a flowery villa. Occasionally, couples could be seen riding bicycles. Lin Chuntao was the center of attention for the umpteenth time. But he was a magnanimous gentleman, tilting his head to ask the two of them, "Don't you find the introduction a little familiar?" At this hour, everyone was a little hungry. She opened a lollipop and placed it in her mouth. Open your WeChat group and you will know why it sounds so familiar. Chapter 7:11. Lin Chuntao paused. WeChat group? You mean Sampang? Bo Jiu didn't reply. Lin Chuntao glanced at Qin Mo, feeling a chill. It was true. But why weren't you surprised when you saw me? Lin Chuntao was shocked by the two of them. Bo Jiu replied without turning, "You're too handsome." With that, the storyboard director and cameraman glanced at each other. Both of them remembered how Spade Z and Almighty Qin had guessed the guest. The naive Lin Chuntao replied, "Little Spade, as long as you maintain your truthfulness, we can be best friends for life." Haha. Bo Jiu paused. "I can't believe I lost to him. I'll win it back for you in a while." Qin Mo's voice was calm, but the way he pulled the youngster over seemed extremely intimate. "Look ahead when you walk, don't turn back all the time." Bo Jiu chewed on her lollipop. "Oh," she replied obediently. The entire crew felt the same way. Almighty Qin wasn't participating with his crew, he was bringing a boyfriend. Lin Chuntao also felt like he was the third wheel, but he still had to ask, "Don't tell me your production team only hired guys?" The storyboard director nodded. Lin Chuntao turned. "Aren't you going to admit it's a gay show?" The cameraman. "I think I'm looking at the most handsome man in esports." Bo Jiu paused, stuffing a hand into her pocket as she watched the scene unfold before her. Those who weren't in the know would assume Uncle Bird had made an appearance since Sampang was dressed in gold and silver and was driving a red Lamborghini. Beside him, Almighty Xiao was the truly handsome one. With his gold-rimmed spectacles pushed up, he looked like a Prince Charming. Sampang was probably trying to attract the cameraman's attention, blowing his 3 strands of hair confidently. When he caught sight of Qin Mo, he exploded. Archenemy. The crew. The next second, Sampang caught sight of Bojio. Little Spade, I miss you so much. Come to Xiangnan. We can give you everything except for the vice-captain position. The storyboard director had no choice but to whisper, we thought you guys weren't familiar with each other since you haven't spoken much in the competition. This was a reminder to them that they should greet each other when they saw each other, and not be so crude. Unexpectedly, Sampang didn't understand the true meaning behind it at all. Instead of answering, he asked, why do you guys have such an illusion? We often shout on WeChat that we're going to the Japanese server. Oh. Fatty is spouting nonsense. Lin Chintao's face was solemn. We aren't close at all. The production crew. Do you believe it yourself? If he wasn't familiar with her, he would hug her. Almighty Xiao walked down, his posture calm, but his gaze paused on Qin Mo. There's another guest. Thankfully, there were still people who remembered the existence of the script. Lin Chuntao, who do you think it is? Almighty Xiao turned his head and asked. Lin Chuntao covered Fatty's mouth. Don't ask such things. Before he could finish his words, he saw a person walking over. Black hair, a high-nose bridge, and a deep smile in his eyes, just like in his memory. Captain. Lin Chuntao was truly stunned. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.